Then the MotoGP world was instantly shaken. Ducati immediately became the centre of attention when Davide Tardozzi expressed his astonishment at Marc Márquez's impressive lap time during the first practice session in Valencia. Márquez returned to the track and put on a blistering performance, signalling that his champion instincts were still intact and formidable. Could this be the beginning of Márquez's major comeback that would shake up the competitive MotoGP landscape with Ducati? Let's discuss. For the first time since his serious accident at Mandalika, Márquez returned to riding a motorcycle. It wasn't an official race or a MotoGP test, but rather a private practice session at the Asbar circuit in Valencia. But make no mistake, what happened on this track was far from a typical warm-up. Riding a production Ducati Panigale, Márquez immediately demonstrated a trait exclusive to world-class riders: absolute confidence. From the first lap, he looked comfortable and aggressive, as if he had never been away from the track. Everyone was captivated not only by Marc Márquez's aggressive and confident riding style, but also by the lap time he recorded. Despite it being a practice session, and clearly not an official race, Márquez's lap time was considered competitive and nearly met the standards of a fully prepared rider. These results were not indicative of a rider who had just recovered from a serious injury and had been sidelined for a long time. Anxiety began to creep into the Ducati camp at this point. It wasn't just the results of the practice session. Rather, it was the message Márquez was sending that was too powerful. He wasn't just returning to the track, he was reminding everyone that his instincts and natural speed hadn't faded. The most eye-catching figure on the track that day was Davide Tardozzi, the Ducati Lenovo team manager. He arrived with one primary mission: to ensure that Marc Márquez was completely safe and on track with his recovery plan. However, what happened was beyond expectation. Tardozzi left the track with a look of disbelief on his face, as if he had witnessed something that could not be explained by conventional logic. Tardozzi openly admitted his admiration. According to him, Márquez's recovery speed far exceeded Ducati's internal expectations. Not only did Márquez recover physically, but he also immediately rediscovered his racing rhythm, a crucial phase that typically takes a long time and is a gradual process for riders who have just overcome serious injuries. What made this situation even more surprising was the complete absence of any signs of trauma on the track. He showed no hesitation when entering fast corners or braking hard, and made no compromises to his aggressive riding style. Márquez appeared confident, as if the major accident had left no mark on his body or mind. This admiration was later confirmed by Gigi Dall'Igna, the most influential figure at Ducati Corse. In a statement, Dall'Igna acknowledged that Márquez's performance surpassed the team's technical benchmark, which was based on data simulations and internal Ducati calculations. According to Dall'Igna, Márquez's adaptation process on the bike was much faster than expected, especially considering that it was his first time riding a sport bike after a long, risky injury. Dall'Igna considered Márquez's ability to quickly find his rhythm and competitive pace a rare quality not possessed by all riders, even at the highest level of MotoGP. Furthermore, Dall'Igna emphasized that the most impressive aspect was not the time itself, but how Márquez achieved it. With a smooth, consistent, and controlled style, without the slightest hint of hesitation or compromise regarding his physical condition. For Ducati, this performance was a powerful signal that not only had Márquez recovered, but he was also ready to move on to the next phase with greater ambitions and targets. Marc Márquez's return to the track shook things up within Ducati. The shockwaves quickly spread throughout the MotoGP paddock, prompting serious discussions among team managers, technicians, and fellow riders. Everyone began to realise that the 2026 MotoGP grid could change much more rapidly than anticipated. Márquez's actions in Valencia were not part of an official race or a test session that determined points or standings. However, in MotoGP, signals are often far more dangerous than the final result. This is where opponents read threats and rival teams become wary. Amid the euphoria surrounding the Ducati team, the spotlight inevitably fell on his teammate, Francesco Bagnaia. The world champion, who has been the mainstay of the Ducati Lenovo team for the past few seasons, is said to be monitoring every detail of Marquez's development with serious and calculated attention. Although Bagnaia hasn't publicly commented extensively, sources in the paddock revealed that he considered Marquez's speed in private practice an early warning sign. This wasn't overt pressure or a war of words, but rather a subtle yet powerful signal that Ducati was entering a new phase. Two riders with world champion mentality, immense ambition, and keen competitive instincts would be in the same garage. For Bagnaia, Marquez's immediate competitiveness meant one thing: his comfort zone was slowly disappearing, and his biggest challenge was now coming from within. The issue wasn't confined to the Ducati garage. Rival teams were also beginning to speak out. In the paddock, internal discussions turned to a common topic: how could they stop Ducati if Marquez returned to peak form? Several figures in the paddock said that if Marquez could be aggressive and consistent from the start of the 2026 season, Ducati would have the most dangerous combination of the last decade: a dominant bike and a rider with a natural killer instinct. Rivals were even more wary because Marquez hadn't ridden a MotoGP prototype yet. This meant that his current performance was likely nowhere close to his full potential. Marc Márquez's return to the track has sparked reactions not only from Ducati management and technical officials, but also from other teams. One of the most notable voices came from Marco Bezzecchi. The Italian rider admitted that news of Marquez's speed during private practice in Valencia immediately became a serious topic of conversation in the paddock. According to Bezzecchi, Marquez's comeback is not just news, but an event that will change the dynamics of the MotoGP competition. In his comments, Bezzecchi emphasized that Marquez holds a different status than other riders. This is not only because of his world championship titles, but also because of the way he influences the mentality of his opponents. Bezzecchi said that whenever Marquez returns from an injury or difficult period, he does so in an extreme manner, immediately fast and aggressive, putting pressure on the entire grid. For Bezzecchi, the fact that Marquez looked competitive in a non-official practice session was an undeniable signal. When Marc returned to the bike and was immediately fast, it was no surprise. It was actually his trademark. One of the most frequently discussed topics in the paddock was not speed, but mentality. Many technicians and analysts believe that most riders would be more cautious following an injury. However, Marquez has shown the opposite approach. He's not just returning, he's returning with full courage. If he's this fast in his first practice session, what will it be like when he returns to racing? Leave your thoughts below.